To speak to the substitute, Chair recognizes Representative Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to speak to my amendment to House Bill 5097. This House bill proposes.
Members, we have a colleague wishing to address the body. Please pay our due respect. To speak to the substitute, Chair recognizes Representative Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to speak to my amendment to House Bill 5097, the House bill that proposes such language as must not in any way include any form of race or gender or anything that could be understood as implicit race or gender stereotypes in Michigan core academic curriculum. This is not an issue of making students feel bad or for what their ancestors may have done to enslave descendants of Africa. It's about teaching history accurately. Supporters of this bill don't want white or Caucasian students to feel bad about themselves. How exactly does erasing history accomplish this goal? Dare I say to my fellow female colleagues how this type of language negatively impacts the minds of young female students as well, whether they're Caucasian, Native American, Hispanic, Asian, African American, which is where I will turn my attention to now. My amendment would add language to this bill to require the teaching of African American history in schools. Teaching history requires a lot of information. History includes full details and context where African American and Black Americans contribute and suffered for this great state, for this country. Context where women who paved the way for so many of us right here in this chamber. And to prohibit certain words to be used based on perceived notion that it's racial or gender stereotyping or how somehow make your children feel better about themselves is absurd. What exactly will this look like? What are some of the words that could be perceived as gender or racial stereotypes? Is it misogynist or slave master? Would it be rapist? So that my descendants will be prohibited from being taught that Thomas Jefferson raped Sally Hemings when she was enslaved at 14 years old. Isn't it enough that most of the accounts of this rape depicts it as a love story? That somehow this 14-year-old slave fell in love with this 44-year-old slave master, birthing 6 of his children, the first one at the age of 16. Perhaps this was before statutory rape was a crime. Is that what you want to erase from history? My amendment will ensure that history is taught accurately despite of how uncomfortable it makes you feel. Our children need to learn that there are more names to be taught in history than George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, or even Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, W.E. Du Bois, and Martin Luther King Jr. I'd like to share with you a story of what this world would be like but for the great contributions of African and Black Americans in this country. What if there were no Black people in the world? A little boy named Michael woke up one morning and asked his mother, "Mom, what if there were no Black people in the world?" Well, his mother thought about that for a moment and then said, "Son, follow me around today and let's see what it would be like if there were no Black people in the world." Mom said, "Now go get dressed and we'll get started." Michael ran to his room to put on his clothes and shoes. His mother took one look at him and said, "Michael, where are your shoes? And those clothes, they're all wrinkled, son." "I must iron them." But when she reached for the ironing board, it was no longer there. You see, Sarah Boone, a Black woman, invented the ironing board. And Jan E. Masswinger, a Black man, invented shoelacing machines. "Oh, well," she said, "please go and do something with your hair." Michael ran to his room to comb his hair, but the comb was not there. You see, Walter Sammons, a Black man, invented the comb. Michael decided to just brush his hair, but the brush was gone. You see, Lydia O. Newman, a Black female, invented the brush. Well, this was a sight: no shoes, wrinkled clothes, hair messy, even Mom's hair without the hair inventions of Madam C.J. Walker. Well, you get the picture. Mom told Michael, let's do our clothes around the house and then take a trip to the grocery store. Michael's job was to sweep the floor, do our chores, let's just say. Michael's job was to sweep the floor. He swept and swept. When he reached for the dustpan, it was not there. You know why? Because a Black man invented the dustpan. Lloyd P. Ray. So he swept his pile of dirt over in the corner and left it there. He decided to mop the floor, but the mop was gone. You see, Thomas W. Stewart invented the mop. These are all things that we aren't taught in our history books. Michael yelled to his mom, "Mom, I'm not having any luck." "Well, son," she said, "let me finish washing these clothes and we will prepare a list for the grocery store." When the wash finished, she went to place the clothes in the dryer, but it wasn't there. You see, George T. Salmon, a black man, invented the clothes dryer. Mom asked Michael to get a pencil and some paper to prepare their list for the market. So Michael ran for the paper and pencil, but noticed that the pencil lead was broken. Well, he was out of luck because Hone Love, a black man, invented the pencil sharpener. Mom reached for a pen, but it wasn't there either because William Purvis, a black man, invented the fountain pen. They made their way over to the car and found that it just wouldn't go. You see, Richard Spikes, a black man, invented the automatic gear shift, and Joseph Gamble invented the supercharger system. They noticed that a few cars that were moving, running into each other, and having wrecks because there were no traffic signals. You know why? Because Garrett A. Morgan, a black man, invented the traffic light. Well, it was getting late, so they walked to the market, got the groceries, and returned home. Just when they were about to put away the milk, eggs, and butter, they noticed the refrigerator was gone. You see, Hone Standard, a black man, invented the refrigerator. So they just left the food on the counter. By this time, Michael noticed that he was getting mighty cold. Mom went to turn up the heat, and what do you know? Alice Parker, a black female, invented the heating furnace. Even in the summertime, they would have been out of luck because Frederick Jones, a black man, invented an air conditioner. It was almost time for Michael's father to arrive home. He usually takes the bus, but there were no buses because its precursor was the electric trolley invented by another black man, Albert R. Robinson. He usually takes the elevator from his office on the 20th floor. How many of us would be out of breath going up and down our stairs without the elevator? But there was no elevator because Alexander Miles, a black man, invented the elevator. He usually dropped off the office mail at a nearby mailbox, but it was no longer there either because Philip Downing, a black man, invented the letter drop mailbox, and William Berry invented the postmarking and canceling machine. Michael and his mother sat at the kitchen table with their heads down within their hands. When the father arrived, he asked, "Why are you sitting in the dark?" Why? Because Lewis Howard Latimer, a black man, invented the filament within the light bulb. Michael quickly learned what it would be like if there were no black people in this world. Not to mention, if he were ever sick and needed blood, Charles Drew, a black scientist, found a way to preserve and store blood, which led to his starting of the world's first blood bank. People are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out, but when the darkness sets in, their true beauty is revealed only their true beauty is revealed. Their true beauty is revealed only if their light is from within. So, I will give credit to this author if I knew who it was, but you get the picture. Without black people and the contributions that we have made to this country, there would be a lot of inconveniences in this world. So the problem as I see it is that far too often the accomplishments and successes of black people have been brushed aside or overlooked within the context of our country and our state's history. History is important, and not just about the people in our history. The history includes the social, economic, and systemic racial gender injustices that were once commonplace. Too often, only that first list is taught in our school. But both of our lists, all of our people and our contributions make up our history of this nation. What makes teaching history complex is what is included and excluded, and who is included and excluded. I wholeheartedly support requiring teaching African American history in our schools. What needs to be understood is that African American history is American history. Let me say that again. What needs to be understood is that African American history is American history and deserves the same focus as any other history lesson. This legislation would put together a commission of some of the most brilliant scholars in this state. This legislation will provide a better and more accurate account of history curriculum for our students to learn. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Neither will I, Desmond Tutu. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. The question is on the adoption of